Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL Show. We are back after controversial best 11. Actually, it ended up being a lot less controversial than I thought. It felt like most people were mostly okay with what we said, which either A, means that we did a good job, or B, no one listened. So we'll figure out which one it was. So thank you all so much for popping back in. Got a big week ahead, big night ahead, lots of topics. John, how are you?
Doing well, yeah. Felt like it was a busy week, tons of midweek games and the ESPN2 doubleheader, so lots to talk about.
Speaking of going to a disco, well, not really, but Alan, you look great. Oh, you're muted, baby. You're muted.
I'm out of practice. Things are going all right. Things are going all right. I'm home recovering. I was just giggling a few minutes ago watching these poor kids in New Jersey standing in front of the Chilean national team while they belt out their national anthem, and the kids are like, "I have no idea what's going on and what the words are to any of this." So I was googling. Like, some kids are like standing there with a hand on their chest, on their heart, over their heart, like trying to be good. And then there's some kids who are just like, "It's great. It's great." So things are going well here.
Oh man, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. I saw a tweet earlier this week that said we're in the part of the summer where you could just say the temperature in response to any question and it would be an acceptable response. So I'll go with it's 85 degrees at 9 o'clock at night in Charlotte, and it's going to be no lower than 90 every day this week.
Let's see. I want to just know what it is in Birmingham because I am curious. Oh, it's only 93. That's not too bad. So hey, listen, you're bringing up the Copa America. Do you know how furious I am that my most viral tweet is "Commie Ball"? Do you understand how mad I am?
You're killing the game with every ticket price tweet and the commie ball and everything.
I'm absolutely bitter. Before we get too far into this, I want to thank our wonderful, wonderful patrons: John Hunt, Frank Anthony, Aaron J., Christopher Cohn, Harry Austin, John Fuller, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duda, Noah Telford, Alberto Aguilar, Jerry Churchman, Stephen Howard, Rion Lacara, Tim Knox, NF Reg 30, MOS, and Kunal Patel. Thank you guys so much for helping us out, getting us out to Oakland, but also just helping us do the live streams because the stuff ain't free and you help us a lot. Speaking of people who help us, Goals TV, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode. You guys have been a wonderful sponsor of us. And if you want to know about the world of soccer, check out goals.tv. First off, it's free. You can sign up and then later say, hey, I don't really like this. And guess what? That's fine because it was free. It cost you nothing. But I'm willing to bet that you will like it because there's so many good content creators that are doing all sorts of stuff on different soccer things. They had a player go behind the scenes on TST, someone who played in the tournament and like vlog the whole thing, which was an absolute blast. Go check that out. Lots of Copa America content, lots of Euros content. So go check that out. A lot of stuff to cover today. A lot of things to cover. And if you are hey, I do love me some Enzo. One thing that's super excited to get into that people are kind of referencing in our live chat. We have a phone number that you can call and we will listen to it live. We have 2 voicemails that we will be listening to today. But if you would like to call and leave us a voicemail, first off, we have 2 rules: 60 seconds or less. That way it doesn't take forever for us to listen to. And try to keep it PG if you can. Appreciate it. The number is 205-737-3250. Check it out. Give us a call. And this is going to be a segment. We are going to do 2 segments first, and we're going to get right into the voicemails. It's going to be an absolute blast. First things first, Alan, you might be one of the most, you're going to be one of the most apt people to talk about the situation of Morten Carlson is out at Orange County. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh no, he got fired after a win? That's brutal. No, he's actually going to the Superliga in Denmark, taking on a newly promoted side, which is super exciting for him. What does that kind of mean for Orange County, and what has been the timeline on this thing?
So I mean, I only saw rumors yesterday, and some scuttlebutt going around about he might be out, and it was just like, what's going on? I know the Orange and Black Soccercast guys were trying to get comments from the team, like, hey, what's up? These seem to be reputable news sources. These seem to be like legit things coming out, and the team was not willing to release any information, and maybe they waited till after the podcasts just to be a little bit mean to them. But I think from the majority, from what I'm hearing from some of the Orange and Black guys, is that this seems to be kind of a positive thing for Orange County in general, in the sense of, the USL, and particularly with Orange County, their philosophy is like move guys on if there's an opportunity to move you to a better opportunity, to where you want to go, then they're going to let you go and they're going to want you to be successful. I think with Carlson being a young coach, he's going to get some opportunities. He had a opportunity to kind of prove himself and his philosophy. Maybe some injuries got in the way of Orange County being as successful as maybe they could have been. I think, a lot of people have been, I want to say pretty high on Orange County, but thought they were going to be relatively successful this year. So I think it's mostly, hey, it's a good thing for him. It shows that the team is not going to get in your way of moving on. And there's some plugs from Nicholas Murray about an interview with Morten, that I got an exit interview. It's on the USL YouTube channel tomorrow. And so I think it's a positive for Orange County. I think it's a positive for the coach, and maybe a good time for him to leave before the injuries start piling up, and it makes it kind of him taking the fall for it. But I think a lot of people in Orange County feel that it's good for the coach, and it's good for Orange County.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about Orange County, they're a team that really understands how to deal with a midseason coaching change, right? Like, they chose to do it. They got Chaplow in there, and it led to a title-winning season. They did the same thing with Carlson, and it really revived their 2023. Like, it took a couple weeks to get going, but then they ripped off 11 wins in 12. They really found their level and found their system. And I don't want to say that Orange County has progressed beyond the need to have a good manager, but I think they do have this sense of institutional culture in a way that it's less important to have somebody coming in with a very specific vision. The fact that they're able to come up with so many talented young players, not only does it give you a good platform to build on squad-wise, but when your senior players are getting injured, as has been so often the case this season, like, that's great depth, that's great backup to have. The fact that Carlson played the kids, was willing to go along with that, is a real credit to him, a credit to the club that they let him move on and are going to get some sort of fee for it back from the club in Denmark. You don't love to see it just in terms of a team we thought was going to be competitive is already a little bit under expectations, and now they're losing their coach. But in the longer term, letting somebody take a move that's going to be better for them in that longer horizon is ultimately the environment you're trying to foster. So love to see it.
Yeah, and you're looking at Carlson, who departs from Orange County, having won 17 of his 28 games. They are fairly successful tenure. He's going to a club in Denmark where he played 15 times there as a player, so there was at least already a connection to go. And I think it really helps raise the level for the USL that we're able to send our managers out overseas into these top leagues in Europe and just kind of prove that there is a foundation that is going to be built here that can be moving on, not just for players, but for coaches as well. It'll be interesting to see how Orange County kind of rebounds from this and what the next steps moving forward. It's Paul Hardiman, who's going to be taking over as their interim boss, who was there during that 2021 title campaign. So just seeing how Orange County kind of reacts moving forward will be interesting.
I think it's also USL, and I think NWSL is going to have it has some issues with this from time to time as well, is that this is the off season for most of other leagues. And so this is where coaching changes happen for literally pretty much every other league in the world. And so as USL becomes a place to produce talent for Europe from players, but also from coaches, you're going to see some of these mid-year coaching changes, because this is when teams want to make coaching changes. And so unfortunate for USL teams that this is like mid-season. This is, when most leagues are making those changes for the betterment of their club, not because they're firing coaches, but because they're setting them up for next year. So, yeah. Andy King says that Sunderland AFC legend Paul Hardiman. And OC does have a history of bringing in past players. So there's some guys who are still local that might show up. And, to be fair, they've made some really good coaching changes and coaching decisions. We'll see with this, with a new setup. I know Oliver's not there anymore. I don't know how much he had to recruit some of those guys. So it'll be interesting to see what this next big coaching hire will mean for OC.
Overall, I think one thing with Orange County is that they get a really big win against Indy. And I feel like they finally sort of figured it out for a game, right? And then it kind of gets ripped from underneath them. But I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I don't know how repeatable their match is against Indy.
Not
to the
at all.
point that, right. So if, we have a moment to get a new idea, a new system in place that maybe fits more of what the roster has, because it never really felt like Carlson figured it out after, Milan left. It never felt like he really sorted through the players that he has on the roster and said, here's how I can get the best of every single person in this roster in a coherent system. Maybe this is the chance to kind of do not a reset on the season, but reset tactically and bring in someone that can fit the roster now.
I know where you're coming from with that. And the more I've kind of dug into what am I thinking about Orange County, like Carlson never had the ability to get his best 11 players out on the pitch this season. Outside of San Antonio, there's not been another team in the league that's been this ravaged by injuries. Like, no one thought Ashton Miles was going to be really much of a presence at all. And they've been so deceased at center back that he's been unbelievably good, having to step up. Ryan Dogman, who for my taste would have been like all West last year, he's been in and out of the lineup a lot. I think multiple different injuries. We've seen Among out of the squad. Whatever happened with Sophia and Jeffal, like, I am sympathetic to the fact that Carlson probably didn't have his strongest system this season, but there are so many wild cards at play that really like cut him off at the knees as he tried to do so.
Fair enough. We ready to go full Mingo? I mean, full Mingo, they went absolutely nuclear. I have said it many times, but Gary McLaughlin goes from North Carolina FC to Ford Madison. And it's a little bit of the richer get a whole lot richer. And, this is a team that John and I fawned over in our League One preview, this team. And they have enough strikers. They have enough midfielders. They have enough, but they beat Union Omaha, which we'll get to in a minute. And then they decided that's not good enough. And Gary McLaughlin was one of the top 5 players in the league last year. I think some people would say top 2, and he wasn't number 2. Like, he was a fantastic player in the league last year. And the fact that he ended up at Ford Madison shocks me. When I saw that he was posting his thank you North Carolina for everything, I didn't think it was going to be for a League One squad. I thought he was going to the championship or somehow going to Europe somewhere, not to Forward Madison. And if that is not a sign of intent from Forward Madison, I don't know what else is.
Yeah, I mean, I think two things here. If you're North Carolina, like, it's a guy you loved having around for 2 seasons, but with what you've got from Evan Conway and pretty much the exact role that McLaughlin would play, from what you've got from Louis Perez in particular, who's been ridiculously great, there's just a surplus of forwards in that team. I think McLaughlin made 1 start all season, so it made sense to let him pursue an opportunity where he can really thrive again. And Madison, for all their success, they're the 3rd worst offense in League One in terms of expected goals. Like, they figured out that 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 shape in terms of the defensive structure. You love what you're getting out wide when you've got Payne, when you've got Verity Sosa. It's a bit of a disconnect because Cheney and Galindrez haven't been a natural fit. Like, they're 2 guys that can score goals for fun. There's not quite the linkage between them. And McLaughlin really, like, evolved his game in North Carolina last year. I think he had 7 assists. He figured out how to be that second striker, be that setup man. You can imagine him sitting between the lines, really activating Madison in a way that they've just not done consistently enough. Love the signing for them. And I mean, hard to point to any other club in League One right now as the favorite.
I think Gio would fight you pretty hard on Greenville. And, you know, Chip out in Union Omaha.
I was going to say Omaha would be my 2. Sorry, Gio.
I mean, top of the table. Don't forget it, people. But I posted about it today of just whether it be in the semifinals or in the finals, this was bound to be a Forward Madison Union Omaha collision course that's going to happen in the playoffs. Is going to hit like crack. Like, it's so early in the season and you can't be crowning people champions this early, but there is a clear gap from the top 3 in the rest of the league. I feel like you really can separate it as Forward Madison, Union Omaha, Greenville Triumph, take your favorite team of the bunch, and you can make an argument. From there, you're looking at the tier below and saying, you know, how do we sort through this jumble of mess? Because from everybody from like Spokane down to, well, above Central Valley, you can make an argument for of being, you know, playoff contenders. And if you make the playoffs, you can win it all, right? That's just how the system works. But it's that those top 3 are just head and shoulders above everybody else. But while we're kind of here, we will get to the voicemails, and I want to do it after. But since we're already here at Forward Madison, let's talk about this Omaha match where Forward Madison win 2-0. Christian Cheney gets a penalty in the 40th minute, and the best name in all of world soccer of Wolfgang Prentice scores in the 95th minute. But even then, like, it was a chippy game. It was pretty even. The score line doesn't reflect the actual match because it was close. It was a very close, well-contested match. But it just felt like Omaha just could not get over the line. You know, they made lots of changes throughout the match. They really piled on the pressure. I mean, it wasn't like they weren't taking shots. It wasn't like they weren't doing what they had to do. But when Forward Madison has 2 shots on target and they both go in, one being a penalty, one being a banger, what can you do? I mean, I appreciate that, Nicholas. I do. If you didn't see it.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was saying, this is Omaha's first loss they've been shut out in since the middle of last season when they lost to Lexington 3-0. I mean, Forward Madison continue at the top of the league right now as the last unbeaten team in league play for USL 1. It's just been Forward Madison just kind of controlling the league as they did with this match. And it was a great showing on Galazzo as well, with having over 4,000 fans in attendance.
I want to. So I was going to share the clip of Omaha's coach going just nuclear on Twitter, but Omaha has since deleted said video of Dom. Yeah, because I was going to play it live. If someone in the Wayback Machine can find it for me, and so we can still listen to it, hilarious. But a lot of people had the same reaction of last time that Dom came out here and started blaming other people and started throwing people under the bus. They decided to win like 16 straight games. So be ready for the Omaha Revenge Tour. By Revenge Tour, they lose one match and they're mad about it now.
Yeah, I mean, within this game, Omaha definitely wasn't executing the style that they've become so known for under Casciato. I thought Pedro Dolabella especially was a little bit uninvolved in the central midfield. And that's kind of been the problem for them when they've had their dry spells this season. But I mean, that's full credit to forward Madison in a lot of ways. I thought the performances from the back line were ridiculously good. Chalaka and Jake Kroll at the wide center back spots were ridiculous. The way that they were able to activate their offense, passing into the channels was great. Defensively, they really were up to the task about the width that Omaha gets you when they're in their back five. This was a great showcase for League One generally. And I think, a real statement win for Madison playing their game, getting the goal on that penalty and never looking back.
When I was watching this match, one thing that I kind of forgot happened that I still don't understand is Zico Lewis is just sort of chilling out in Omaha right now. And I don't know, man. Having Zico Lewis being on the bench for your team usually spells good things. I'm not worried at all about Union Omaha. I know that some people would like, a panic take for them. I'm not worried whatsoever about Union Omaha. You overcome a banger and a penalty, and you just kind of wipe your hands and say it happens. Like, it happens to the best teams in the world. They will be just fine. All right.
What are you talking about? They're never going to win again. This is the end. That was the last win you've ever seen from Union Omaha. I think this is what bugs me about being like fandom in general. Like, being a Padres fan is like, they win and they're the best team ever. They lose, it's like the sky is falling, and it like bugs the crap out of me. Like, yeah, take a breath. For Madison, this is what we see when a team invests in their club and like actually put really good players on the pitch and like invest in a winning team, that you get a good club. And sometimes soccer is an evil sport where maybe what you feel is the better team should have won and they don't. But I do think, that this was really well defensively played. And a ball bouncing off a guy's hand is really what made the huge difference in this match. And sometimes that happens, and credit to Ford Madison for, putting the ball in the back of the net when you get an opportunity against a really good team like Union Omaha, and then how they defended that 1-goal lead. And then, sniping a goal right at the very end. I think it echoes the game we're going to talk about a little bit later too, where maybe the scoreline isn't quite, watching it back, knowing what the score was going to be, was like, where are the goals coming from? Like, I know I know where we're going to get to. Like, when does it happen? And so I think just this 1-0, it shows the strength of these clubs. And I think, these two clubs, if they played every week, probably low scoring, and it would probably go back and forth just based on bounces. So both teams can walk away with this one pretty happy, I think.
There's nothing worse than being a baseball fan and sitting there and living and dying by 162. So I get it. My day is ruined if the Reds lose, and they do it a lot over 162. But by God, when they win, we're so back, never losing again until the next day.
Kaylor, the priority with us Reds fans is just to accept that we're always going to lose, and then just be pleasantly surprised when we don't.
This is true. At least with the Padres, the Padres have just been right at 500 for the last year. And so you'll win 3 in a row, you'll lose 3 in a row, but no matter what, you'll end 81-81, and that's just how it's going to be. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to our calls. We have our call-ins, people. I can't wait to regret this, and it's going to be awesome. I'm going to go ahead and pull them up. In order for us to do this, there's going to have to be a tiny screen where you can sort of see the voicemails, because StreamYard doesn't let you just do audio for some bizarre reason. And maybe they can. Somebody please tell me if that's possible. But as far as I know, it's not. So I'm going to pull it up, hopefully, and we will get there. I say hopefully because for some reason it's not showing up. So, but we do have a couple of calls, and I will get to it shortly. Somebody else buy time for me, please. I'm fighting for my life.
Well, I just discovered that StreamYard literally has a setting called call-in screen, and I think that's a revelation.
There's a call-in screen?
If you click the little blue arrow, it comes up with call-in screen because they were thinking ahead and they want us to be talk radio, talking heads.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
I'm going to vamp on Wolfgang Prentice because
please.
This guy he's an Oakland root still, technically. He's been on loan to League One 3-4 years in a row at this point. And credit to Ilya Alexeyev because he's been unreal at wingback, but he's also like a teenage kid. Why did they just re-sign Wolfgang Prentice if they were just, I don't know. He's good. He's like fine at the League One level. So why is Oakland just hanging on to him and loaning him every single year? Weird stuff.
I figured it out, people. I don't know why it was freaking out on me, but it was. So hopefully the audio, if the audio isn't working, somebody yell at me and say audio isn't working. That's the whole segment, stupid, or something of the sort. We're going to start off with one of the shorter ones, and we will get right into this one, hopefully. So here we go.
We're not hearing a thing.
I love that for me. I absolutely love that for me.
Here's the USL show. We make sure that our technology is in order.
Do you know what's crazy is I literally made sure it worked earlier. Never mind. So it has to be an entire screen for me to share. That's great. I love that for me.
Oh, you're screen sharing.
Yeah.
Not a download. That makes sense.
Oh, I can download. Hey, while I am figuring this out, and I will delete this later for the podcast, how about you guys go ahead and talk about Rhode Island and winning over Louisville City with one of the most get-right games of all time?
Yeah, doubled their win total against one of the better teams. I think if you said this is going to be 5-2, and I would have put money that the Louisville scored 5 and not Rhode Island. This was kind of a fun one to watch because I think Rhode Island is they didn't kind of back away. They kind of took the game to Louisville City. I think this is where I think a lot of people who believed in Rhode Island and what they were doing, this is kind of this is what people thought they might be at one point in the season. Attacking team, maybe got some bounces, maybe got some like golazos almost. And maybe Lou City's a little bit unlucky with really good goalkeeper performance and also just shots not going quite where they want them to go. They didn't draw, which I thought was, if you score 5 and you draw, I think at that point you just quit soccer. And they're immediately folding if that gets back to 5-5. But again, the scoreline doesn't really reflect kind of the flow of the match. Like most of the goals happen like in stoppage time, which is wild, which is very like hockey, right? It's like, did they pull their goalie? What's going on? But I think this shows kind of the strength of that Rhode Island team and what I think a lot of people were looking at them doing successfully when the names who they signed came out. And Nicholas Murray said has never conceded 5 goals in a home game in the championship before. So record-setting performance by first-year team Rhode Island.
Yeah, and I mean, in the context of this game, yes, Lou City ran up the expected goal numbers. Yes, it took a really strong performance from Jackson Lee to get Rhode Island over the line. But you still really liked the process. You liked the style that Conor Smith came up with for this game. I think it was very smart to return to that back five shape. It's basically the first time that JJ Williams and Albert Dikwa have been able to play as just a good old-fashioned strike pair. And it worked out really well. Like the long ball game was clicking for them as they built out from the back. JJ Williams was a monster in the air. I thought going with Joe Brito in the left side of the midfield was effective again. I think he gives you just that much more movement in the midfield, gives you reads that are a little bit more creative, and he paired very well with Jorge Quizera over there. Obviously, Turnbull was good. Turnbull is always good. But getting the supporting cast going, building in that shape that can withstand Louisville once they really put you to put your feet to the fire at the end of the game. Like everything was well managed. Sure, there's some luck involved, but Rhode Island has been on the receiving end of being extremely unlucky for most of this year. So you love to see it.
And especially from Rhode Island's perspective, just like as a way to get a just confidence boost, and it's like, yes, we can do this type of win. That's the type of performance that you need to do it up against the league's current top best team. From Rhode Island's view, they are still only 3 points out of a playoff spot right now, and it's very much within their reach to continue improving and building upon this. What I thought was interesting was this is the second time since in a expansion team's first season that they've scored 5 goals in a match. We had Rhode Island obviously this year, and then Monterey Bay in 2022 had a 5-0 victory over Indy 11. But yeah, as Nicholas Murray mentions in chat, with this being the first time that Louisville has conceded 5 goals at home. They also had a 5-0 defeat on the road to Sacramento, which ironically also came out after their 3-0 defeat at home to El Paso last season. But this is just one of those games for Louisville that you have to just kind of write off and move on to the next one. But definitely a platform for Rhode Island to build upon.
Chase Holstad, I mean, I'm just really glad that he has stopped hitting the post because I've never seen someone hit a post more. Phil has kind of talked about it before, and I think he's right. There's no one that can strike a ball quite like him in the USL right now. And I mean, he puts it as on frame as he possibly can. I mean, it just doesn't go into the back of the net. And now it does.
Literally on frame.
Right. Yeah, literally on frame.
As on frame as it gets. Yes. And it was nice to see the ball go in the back of the net for him. When I talked to Benton Newman just about 30 minutes ago, one thing that he talked about from Vamos Morados is, you know, most of those goals, obviously they were losing heftily, but they shipped the late wins with trying to just go for the game. And so is it a true 5-2 loss? Maybe not the 5, but you know, the 2 goals, they got those for some reason. They got those because they were going for it, and you know, Rhode Island made some interesting choices at the end of the game, substitution wise. But you know, 5 goals does flatter Rhode Island a little bit, but talk about regressing to the means as well as you possibly could have after just a constant tease all year long of what they can be.
Yeah, I mean, they've been underperforming their expected goals by more than anybody else in the division. Like, it was due for that to happen. And for Clay Holstead to kick it off with the banger after he's kind of been like the poster boy for being unlucky, pretty karmic for them.
So John Fuller does put in the chat of give Bruno Lapa a goal of the year and be done with it. Can't tell you how nice that was for us to put him in the best 11 and then, get a little bit of pushback on it. And then for him to immediately do that against Noel, I've really felt vindicated.
Am I allowed to say that if I'm voting for a goal of the year, I think the halfway ones are gimmicky?
I agree.
Like, I don't know. I understand it's an immense amount of skill, but something like Holstad banging it from the edge of the box, I don't know. That's just a prettier play to me.
My goal this season last year would not have been either of the bicycle kicks. I was still madly in love with Velo's strike against Tulsa in the opening game of the year last year.
It was ridiculous. Florian Velo is so good.
So that's just me. Yeah, I don't like the long range goals too much, I'll be honest. But
yeah,
I think I have this figured out. And when it doesn't work, you can once again yell at me because obviously, but I think I got it. So we are going to just go ahead and start off with the first one. Super short, 13 seconds. Here we go.
Hi, Caleb. First off, tell your cats I said hello. Second, what is the best away day in the USL? Thanks. And I look forward to your all's answers.
Amazing.
So, first ever call-in. Thank you for calling in. Away days. I think it depends on what you want on an away day. I'm not someone who necessarily does the whole stay for several days. And if I was, I feel like Las Vegas is the easy answer. But because I'm not biased, obviously it's going to be Oakland because that's where we're going to be. Please support us. Going Oakland versus Sacramento. Check that out as we do it. But man, I love a good scenic area, and Charleston Battery really does it for me. I love the bridge. I love the bay. I love everything about it. That one just makes my soul happy just to watch a match there. Charleston really gets me in the feels for a good away day.
If we're just talking game environment and I'm trying to separate that out from the city, I think it would be pretty undeniable that, like, bucket list wise, I would want to go see Detroit City there at Keyworth. Having that fan base, having that food truck selection, by the way, like everything about the experience in Detroit looks like the bomb.
There's also, if you're talking about fan bases, I want to sit in on, I got to make sure I get the name of it right. Is it the Magical Minute or the Enchanted Minute in New Mexico? I want to sit in the middle of that one good time. It makes me, I want to get out to New Mexico so bad. If they had a better stadium situation, I feel like they would be the easy 1-1 of the league with how much support they get and just how fun their fans are. Also, I've never been out to the Desert West before, so I feel like I would just have a blast in Albuquerque.
Yeah, Albuquerque's airport's legit. It's like if you imagine what Albuquerque's airport would look like, it's the Albuquerque airport. Like the carpet's terrible. They're like wood beams. There's turquoise everywhere. I'm like, thank you for being completely on brand, New Mexico, for your airport. I was gonna say San Diego. Just for the weather. I think Sacramento would be. What's that? The zoo?
Don't forget about the zoo.
The safari park is better than the zoo, and I will die on that hill. It's further north. It's not really in San Diego. It's in Escondido. It's a whole thing, but it's whatever. You come out here. I got a season pass. I'll meet you. We'll hang out. Sacramento during the fair might be really fun too. I know that it's causing some issues with some of their games. Allegedly, I think with one of their Open Cup matches is having some issue with the fair. I don't know. But the fair is like in the background of the stadium. And so when the fair is going on, you get to be in the stadium and then see the fair. I would like to make my way up to Sacramento to see that one.
Yeah, Nicholas Murray in chat's already taking two of my answers. I can attest that Charleston is a lot of fun for an away day. I've always enjoyed those trips there. Tampa Bay was going to be another selection of mine as a good bucket list for Outlang Stadium. But I guess to go on an offer or an option that hasn't been named yet, I'm going to go down to League One and actually say the Richmond Kickers are a really good time for their stadium. I mean, it's a historic ground for USL. It's basically a long-time home for the Kickers. They have a tremendous fan base. So, yeah, I would certainly say Richmond of the clubs that haven't been named yet.
Richmond, Ford, Madison are two that I really want to make it out to, specifically Richmond. I love what Richmond are doing. I think that's a great shout. Last one, I know we're just kind of naming all the places, but I really want to go to Colorado Springs, something awful.
That's a cool place.
It's fun.
Also, yeah.
So
I would go to NoCo before I go to Colorado Springs, but that's just because I like that part of Colorado a little bit better than the Colorado Springs area of Colorado. That's just my opinion, man.
As someone who's never been to Colorado, you could just drop me in Colorado and I will have an absolute blast. And then you'll be like, you're actually in the desert part, and you could tell, and I would be like, I guess I'm in New Mexico, I think. I don't know. Like, Colorado confuses me because I thought it was all desert or all mountains. And then they were like, no, it's actually all desert, or half of it is. And that confused me. So.
And I will say, for game atmosphere, lights are actually rather fun for Las Vegas. But beyond the Las Vegas experience, I sat in a luxury. I sat in a luxury suite when I was there, so maybe it's rose-colored glasses.
I respect it. All right, let's go ahead and get to our other call, which comes from our good friend Harry.
Yes.
Good day, the USL Show. This is Harry. My quick question, because I want to keep it under a minute, is since we're halfway through the USL season, biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, and what team can come back from either the bottom of the standings or what team will drop from the top of the standings? You guys do great work. Always enjoy the shows. Hope you have a great day.
Harry has the radio caller rhythm down so perfectly.
For me, we're talking about obviously disappointment, shockers, and just who can bounce back and surprises, right? We're going to talk about this in the Tactics Show in just a minute, and we'll hear about it. But the biggest bounce back, I am fully in on Loudoun. I know we do this every single year, but I am fully in on Loudoun. I can't quit them. But as for biggest shock, disappointment, it's not shocking to say El Paso. You see talent on paper and you see where they are. That said, I really believe in the turnaround. I like what I'm seeing. Do I think they're going to sneak into the playoffs? No, but I think they're going to be very respectable at the end of the season, a real, formidable foe, if you will. Pittsburgh is a John Fuller does bring up Pittsburgh, and I'm sure somebody's going to say it in a second. But surprise positive, honestly, it has to be New Mexico. We just mentioned them. With the roster on the paper, they look like a team that sneaks into the playoffs, let alone top of the table.
I've been told by somebody high up in a team level that New Mexico's defense is like a bad League One tier. And I mean, I kind of agreed when I heard it, and that's a take that aged like milk for everyone involved. So yeah, I think that's fair. I would just to tackle some of these. I mean, I think in terms of a negative surprise, if you had told me that San Antonio is going to be sitting in 11th place come the midway point of the year, that's insane. And I know I talked about the injuries a lot with Orange County. That's very much the case with San Antonio. But there's also this added sense of I didn't like how the roster was built to begin with. I think that they really play into the injuries, just given how their style works. Like this is familiar ground on the USL show. We've covered it a lot, but San Antonio being this disconnected and disjointed probably has been my surprise of the season in a bad way.
I'm going to go a little bit different, and I'm going to say just like the parity in the West is kind of surprising to me, more than like one team in particular. Like going up and down the standings in the West, like Oakland at 3 right now, like Vegas being competitive is super fun. Memphis 901 coming over doing the old St. Louis bit it is, holding their own in the West. And doing quite well recently, picking up a win against that New Mexico United club. So I just think the parity in the West is pretty darn surprising, because I think there were some teams that people were going to say were going to be bottom dwellers that aren't. San Antonio maybe can turn something around. I think Vegas can fight for a playoff spot, which is ironic. But I think just the parity of the West is I should say, surprisingly good. But also kind of reminds me of some old school West where it's going to go down to the last day between home playoff match and not having a playoff game to play at all. So that's my biggest surprise to answer the question I want to answer.
I think for the biggest positive surprise on my perspective would be Indy 11 reeling off 8 consecutive wins. I know that streak had recently just ended, but I mean, we're looking at like a winning streak that's within the top 5 most successful within USL Championships history. And to see Indy 11 be so competitive at that time and really knocking on the door of second in the Eastern Conference right now, I feel like is a very just positive moment around Indy 11 that's going through so much tumultuous stuff happening off the field.
To talk about a little bit what's going on in our live chat with New Mexico about how long did Beyonce able to get respect, quote unquote, on paper. I think what New Mexico is kind of going through right now is what happens to a lot of good teams that are in the middle of their jump start, is that their players aren't household names until they are. Right? Like at some point they have to become household names. And right now that's just what New Mexico's in the middle of. They're in the middle of becoming household names or staying there or, rediscovering themselves. Right. I love what New Mexico is doing. I'm shocked that they are where they are. It feels like every single year they went for it with the sexy names and they played well for 4 games and they fell apart. And then this year they are really doing it. I'm really happy with where they are, shocked at where they are, but also now we're this far in the season. It's not surprising because it's so sustainable. Pittsburgh is a shock. Like the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, we say it's a shock. We've been calling for their demise.
This is what I wanted to say. Yeah.
We've been calling for their demise for the last 6 years, and Lily Ball doesn't quit. I keep calling the Pittsburgh Riverhounds the Tampa Bay Rays, where they just are super stringent and they just don't spend the money because they know Lily Ball produces. And the year where the Tampa Bay Rays are struggling, so is Pittsburgh. And eventually you have to spend money to win. Las Vegas has put in an ounce of care and money, and suddenly they are competitive. Pittsburgh has to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to totally agree with you on Pittsburgh. Like, yeah, no one thought they were going to be quite as dysfunctional in attack as they are, but we've all been like death knocking at the door for 3 years now and been proven wrong. So I think we don't get to call this a surprise. I do want to just throw out a League One thing.
Okay.
In that I don't think I expected Spokane to be this pretty to watch and this competitive right away. So often expansion teams are just straight up bad. right? Like that's the typical expectation. And when they're good, they're playing a very defensive style. They're bunkering in, they're hitting you out on the counter. The Velocity like play very attractive soccer. They have an identity. It's just real good stuff. And it's above what I ever saw for them.
I was actually going to mention a different League One team as the surprise but disappointment with being Lexington.
I don't want to. We talked about it on the preview show, and I'm not shocked at where they are. They brought in an attacking group. They have an attacking team, and they brought in one of the most negative-minded coaches we have seen in the USL and expected him to play attacking football. I'm not shocked. Yes, the names look fantastic. Guess what? The names are actually performing. The system is what's letting this team down. It's not the players. Spokane, I was so shocked at how they've gone. I mean, we saw the names. We believe in the names. We saw there was a lot of players that we could talk ourselves into, but I just didn't think they would gel as fast as they have. If anything, I thought they'd be more on a Rhode Island kind of, trajectory where they would get a few results, draw a good bit, or be in close matches, but not quite get the 3 points. And they're legit, and I'm shocked. They are proving me wrong. But Lexington, for what they had coming in, I've been wanting to have a what's going on in Lexington show for a long time, and if we are 52 minutes in, we do not have enough time for that. But simply, I'm not shocked with the coach who they have in charge, because players are playing. Players are playing well. They're just doing exactly what they're told to do.
You say that, but I think it does have to go both ways to an extent. Like, and to be fair, I should start with the roster build because they signed like 18 center backs. What were we going to do with that? Why are we playing a back four when we have like 9 starting level central defenders? That's foolish. Yeah. None of the center mids can progress the ball. They've got a whole lot of forwards that don't fit as a group. Atestieff is being wasted. Whole lot of negative there. Sorry, Lexington.
It is what it is. So let's go ahead and get into this tactics show. If I can pull this up real fast. Me doing the producer thing has not been working too well, but let's see if I can pull it out of my tail for once. Let's go ahead and get into one of the latest tactics shows of all time. Let's talk about Loudoun United.
Loudoun's rise into the Eastern playoff field has been a testament to the fact that their back three shape has been very fruitful in possession and has allowed them to press very effectively in a sort of 5-2-3 look that does well to both deny the center of the pitch and, when necessary, get support in the wide areas to deny opponents trying to break around the edge. You see that here, forcing a wasteful long ball. At the same time, those wingbacks are encouraged to get upfield and really support attacking moves. That can be useful at times, but it can also lead to vulnerabilities at the back. Here you see 7 players upfield for Loudoun. They work through those wingbacks, trying to engage the forward line. But when a turnover occurs, the lack of structure is palpable. Loudoun's back three are in position, but they're not supported. They're very alone, and Frank Lopez from Miami is able to get in to score. Really, the counterattack and defending the counterattack was Loudoun's primary problem early on. You see it again here on Miami's second goal. The first line of pressure is broken. A wingback has to step inside to cover behind an elevated center mid. And again, it's a break that puts Loudoun's center backs on the back foot and leads to a concession. So how did Ryan Martin change that dynamic up and get Loudoun back to a draw that frankly could have been a win with a late penalty? Here you see the main change. They're playing in a back four. Essentially, Martin took off one of his central defenders and brought Wesley Leggett into the front line as a speedy, flexible option that could stretch Miami and give Loudoun new life in the attacking third. You see Leggett get upfield there, stretching into the channel over the fullback, adding a secondary layer of width that didn't force Loudoun to provide that same level of wing-back aggression upfield. They could still have a threat in the wide areas, but they kept a defensive structure. Leggett is seen there forcing a corner kick, one that would get Loudoun onto the board in the first place, And it really is an example of the way that this team is fluid, the way that they're flexible and can make adjustments in game. Loudon won't beat you just because they're the most talented team on the pitch, but the way in which Ryan Martin is able to use his players to the max is why Loudon is a dangerous team in the.
So I want to piggyback off of this immediately and to give spoilers, but not full on. I sat down with Hugo Farou today for the Glove of the Game. If you are a patron member, that is going to be going up for you tomorrow. For everybody else, it was going to be on Friday. And he didn't get into the tactics with me on what he changed, simply because, there's a lot of ins and outs that doesn't want to disclose, obviously. But the mistakes that you saw in Miami were cropping their ugly head in Las Vegas. And there were just a lot of issues where, it was the three center backs kind of fighting for their life against, a counterattack, right? And they didn't really make any changes against Las Vegas. And we have seen several times where, Coach Morten was pretty stubborn about literally never changing. Last year, he rolled out the same idea, the same formations, barring a couple of injuries, of course, but just kept doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it worked for a while, and then it didn't work. And then he kept with the same thing. And we finally see a change, and they look really good at it. And I think for Loudon, at the very least, it's going to allow them to have multiple looks. So if the back three isn't working, if that hyper possession that they crave to have is not working, they can just switch it up, and they have that in their pocket now.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the beauty of what Loudon is doing right now. The goal of the offseason was adding those veteran presences in the midfield, whether it's McCabe and Skundrich. And McCabe, we don't give enough attention. He's been sublime for them, getting Velo in that kind of mixed forward role and allowing the young players to flourish around them as well. Like Abdelatif Abukora obviously scored the banger. He's somebody who's always had that potential, but really got lost in the mix for a couple of years. The new system fits him very nicely. Riley Boudoir has been very good as well. Martin is finally feeling a bit freer to experiment, not to just stick to the same template of high pressure, back four, etc. It's paying off for Loudon, and I would just love to see them get into the postseason.
For me, I think it, and again, I don't want to give too much away with kind of the film study we did with Hugo that will be coming out. But, there were a lot of moments where Loudon wouldn't track a certain player. Like there would be a late runner to the top of the box that nobody would track. They would just kind of condense themselves into the box and not really follow the free runners. And even after the tactics changed, we still saw a little bit of that. But I do think, other than a couple of players that are on the team, we kind of forget how young this team still is. And that still comes with experience. And that's not what you want to hear if you're a Loudoun United fan right now of we'll be better when they're older, because they're a good team now. You want to win now, but also it's going to be something that as they get older, they are going to learn from those mistakes. And if these are players that you can hold on to for the next, 1 to 3 years, like these are going to be some bona fide USL, not just starters, but superstars, especially in that back line.
It's going to be really interesting for Loudoun looking ahead for the next 4 games. They have Tampa Bay, Indy 11, and Charleston within 3 of those next 4, with Hartford in between that Tampa Bay and Indy 11 match. It's going to be really fascinating to see how this team approaches those games and their record coming out the other side.
Well, if that is all we have on that, let's go ahead and get into some predictions where I am not comfortable with any of my predictions at all this week. I have flip-flopped on every single one of them. But let's go ahead and go out to Patriots Point first and foremost. And let's talk about Charleston versus North Carolina, where Charleston, in hindsight, had one of the most predictable 0-0 draws we've ever seen with Phoenix on ESPN2, which was still a very fun match to watch, by the way. And a North Carolina team who have figured it out. They defensively, they still look stunning. And when you're facing a team who can't seem to figure out how to score, check out the back four, by the way. Check all that out versus a team that refuses to let the team score. How's that going to look? I'm going to start with Ryan right below me.
Yeah, I had a lot of difficulty picking this match. You're looking at a Charleston team who is without a goal in their last 4, winless in their last 5. That's 363 minutes since their last goal. You could watch 2.5 Spider-Man films of the Raimi trilogy in this time. Meanwhile, North Carolina, they've kept 6 clean sheets on the year, and they've already at least helped Charleston scoreless in their previous fixture, which was the opening 0-0 draw to start the season. I'm hesitantly backing Charleston to win this one, but I would certainly take a very low-scoring under 2.5 goals pick.
Alan?
Yeah, so it's been like, has anyone noticed like some teams that you think are going to win lose, and some teams that you think are going to lose win, and it's like crazy, and then your picks go terribly wrong and you end up like dropping in the standings? So I was going to pick Charleston. I was like, no, that's the sucker's bet. That's how they're going to get me. So I chose North Carolina.
I respect fading the fade so much. John?
Yeah, and thank you for the shout out for the piece, Kaylor. I wrote way too many words about Charleston's attack being bad and the political philosophy of Kevin Costner movies. So check out the newsletter today. Charleston is really in a funk offensively. Like, there's no easy way out of it right now. They've become too predictable. And North Carolina certainly isn't a team that will give you easy chances. Something about it just feels like the battery have to catch a break eventually. Like, this month of really unfortunate attacking form can't continue. So go on Charleston.
Can I tell you, you got me. Granted, I read all the stuff that hits my inbox anyway, but on Twitter, it was an instant Twitter click with the angriest raccoon I've ever seen in my life.
I figured that was going to be a good cover. Yeah.
I laughed out loud at my desk when I saw that.
I'm glad to hear it.
I'm taking North Carolina, and I'm not happy about it. But until Myers and Marcanic, which they, I thought it was Marcanic this whole time. But Watts was very.
Yeah, Watson kind of dropping bombs about it. I know.
Yeah, I was like, well, now I feel like a horrible human being. Because I was like, this whole time he was Marcanic, and I've just been calling him the wrong name. Like, that sucks. Like, I'm sorry. But until they start scoring again, I can't back them, especially going against a team that's so defensively stout as this North Carolina team. I'm taking North Carolina, but if this is also the game that Charleston breaks out and scores all the goals, I'm also not terribly shocked. Let's go ahead and go to Loudoun United, whom we just talked about, as they take on the unanimous number 1 team in the USL Championship, according to Power Rankings anyway, with Tampa Bay Rowdies. Brian?
Yeah, I'm backing Tampa Bay in this one just based off the historical series. I mean, Tampa Bay has 8 wins all time against this one, including, I believe, an 8-0 victory over a very different Loudoun team many years ago. But as Loudoun find themselves pretty much in decent form heading into this game, 4 matches unbeaten, including 2 clean sheets in that time, I just still think Tampa Bay is the stronger opponent, so I have them winning this one.
Alan?
Yeah, as much as I would love to go Loudoun, as much as we've been singing their praises, if they were playing a different team this week, I might have picked them. But I think again, going a little bit of chalk here with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real curse when Nicholas and I both have Tampa Bay number 1 in our power rankings, so that's kind of a bad omen. At the same time, do you really see Loudon breaking down that Tampa Bay back three? Because I don't. Like, do you? And granted, this is going to be the test for Erlinson and Hughes and Dambrot. Like, can they go with the big boys when they're facing off against Ardiaga and Jennings? For all of that to go right feels like a big ask. So Tampa Bay.
Does this not have, like we've already mentioned him once today, does this not just have Velo hero ball game written all over it, though?
Yeah, you're right.
I also took Tampa Bay, but I wasn't happy about it. But for they are the best team in the league right now, and until they lose, yeah, I can't predict them to lose. That's just dumb. So let's go ahead and go out west. Is there going to be a new manager bounce? Do new manager bounces count when the coach leaves for a good thing? I don't know. With Orange County taking on Oakland, who, as we mentioned, climbing up the top of the standings. This is going to be an interesting one. It always is between these two teams. Who you got, Ryan?
I do find it interesting because technically now we have a game of two interim managers going up against each other, but I just have to back Oakland, who shockingly has not ever won in Orange County away in the history of this series. But I think just the change in manager for Orange County is really going to impact things for the club. It's going to just have a lot more going on around it. So yeah, I'm backing Oakland.
Yeah, I think Orange County played pretty decently defensively against Indy 11. I know Indy had a couple injuries, which definitely probably affected that game. Your leading scorer goes out. But I think, I'm really like what Oakland's doing. I like the way their kit looks too, so that doesn't hurt. So I went with Oakland here. I'm not super convinced with Orange County just yet.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking an Orange County team, lost 6 out of 8 games across all competitions. Really, everyone was singing the praises of Oakland before a bit of a setback against Monterey on Saturday on national TV. I tend to think that Oakland just has a greater capability to control the midfield. They're feeling confident. They're finally getting Dwyer involved. They've got the momentum to go on and get the win.
I'm also taking Oakland here for all of the reasons stated above. So for the USL League One games, we apparently all picked the same people. So according to Ryan, that never goes well because League One is chaos.
I will say, I think it makes it harder to be different when it's Jägermeister and you have to pick a winner, because I would be all over the draws this week.
Yeah. Oh, that's completely fair. Speaking of a match that has draws written all over it, Charlotte versus Richmond. Charlotte has been bad, like hilariously bad. They said Pack is back there somewhere and he's fighting for his life every single match. And it's crazy because, they got a Bregon who's killing it constantly in the team of the week. And so you have your striker doing good things. You have your goalkeeper doing good things and no one else is. So
route one, baby.
And so we'll see. But Richmond, I'll be honest, I get the juice from Richmond. I feel like they are always just one moment away. Trezeguet is back. We never mentioned that. Trezeguet is back, and that counts for something. Maybe that's the real last spark that this team needed.
We're also we're talking pretty positively about a Richmond team that has 9 points in 10 games in the league. Like, they're really bad.
They're not good, but
they're below Charlotte in the Jägermeister Cup standings.
Yeah, so Ryan, take it away with the pick because we're bloviating here.
I think what's really interesting is for both of these teams, you're currently on the outside of being that best non-group winner, and the winner of this match, if they can collect all 3 points in normal time, is going to put themselves in a really good position to be that kind of best non-group winner that would advance in this competition. I have Richmond winning this one, but as we've discussed earlier in the show, this should certainly be a match that is going to be drawn after 90 minutes.
Alan?
Yeah, when you put Jägermeister in there. It's a little bit of chaos. I went with Richmond only because why not? Magic of the Cup, baby. Richmond.
A shot of glory. John, how do you feel?
Yeah, because I think my running underrated bit this season is just being really mean to the Independents every time I talk about them. I really do think they're fraudulent. So I'm taking the Kickers, and because I'm also just plugging nonstop today, go read my profile of Griffin Garnett for Richmond.
Yeah, the idea of, well, I guess they are they're number 4 in League One. I did not realize that they were doing as well as they are in the actual league, because every time I watch them, they look dreadful. I'm also taking Richmond. I just feel like they're always just one moment away from winning all these matches, and I just want to believe. Maybe it's because I like Richmond fans so much, and they lure me in. Maybe I just have happy feelings towards them. Last but not least, we have Greenville versus Lexington, a green derby. We got Geo versus Lexington Luther with Tyler, and it's going to be an absolute blast. The Twitter memes are going to be on fire. Lexington does really well in the Jägermeister. For some reason, they are a team who is built to take on Jaeger. Greenville, not as much, despite, doing really well in the league themselves. How do you see this one shaking up, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, Lexington currently would be that best non-group winner of this competition on 8 points, but Greenville are still atop their own group on 9 points. In fact, all the group leaders at the time right now has 9 points. I've actually locked the Triumph to win this one this week.
That's pretty ballsy, knowing that it's the Jägermeister Cup and anything can happen. I also went with Greenville. I just think they're maybe the better team, so I picked them.
Hot take.
That's pretty smart stuff, honestly. The thing about Lexington is that, they're the other team I'm being very mean to regularly. They know how to sit in and just be defensive and not even do the offense thing. That is going to make this a tight game, but Greenville has the weapons to break them down. They know how to change up their lineup, change up their squad. I think Sebastian Velasquez being back and his ability to really operate in tight spaces is going to be a big deal. So, yeah, Greenville.
I'm also taking Greenville. Everything tells me that Lexington is going to be good because it's Jägermeister, and that's just kind of what they do. But there's a part of me that feels like the Jägermeister magic is just not going to last forever. Michael Fuchs is going to disagree with that, but I'm sorry, Michael. I do hope that you're happy.
Shout out to Patreon Michael Fuchs. We're just mean to Lexington every time.
Shout out to Tyler, who does use our StreamYard to talk about Lexington, and I am just mean to them on the other show on this account. So if you are someone who's at StreamYard and you for some reason listen to these, it must be the most polarizing thing you ever heard in your life.
Can't buy love, baby. Can't buy love.
This is true. Final thoughts for the night. What we got? USL thoughts? Anything? Any USL? No? Okay. How about some final thoughts just in general? Let's start off with John.
Yeah, I am so excited for the Bear to come back tomorrow. Dropping at 9 Eastern time, I want to say. So I'm going to finish watching the evening slate of games and probably binge an entire season of TV.
I
respect that. Alan?
My wife's been watching House of Hidden Dragons or whatever that show's called. And I was like, how is it? And she said, I have to listen to a podcast because apparently, so spoiler alert, one of the characters' names is Eric and another character, his twin, is named Eric. And you have to tell them apart. So good luck, guys. And there's Aegon and Aegorn and Acorn and Egon. Wait, that's Ghostbusters. I've been watching old Star Wars cartoons because I've recently had
Yeah,
surgery.
buddy.
Yeah, and so I've been like rewatching that again because I have not yet watched Ashoka,
Okay.
and so I'm rewatching the cartoons to then jump into Ashoka. I've been recovering. I've been sitting on a couch and in a bed for the past like week and a half. So there's been a lot of I want to binge watch stuff, but it's stuff I don't really want to pay attention to all that much. So Star Wars cartoons it is.
Yeah, no Yukon Cornelius, but the Abominable Snowman is there.
Ryan?
Yeah, John had took mine with The Bear season 3. I
figured.
actually didn't know that all 10 episodes were going to drop at once. I was expecting just to have another weekly release series to go alongside my House of the Dragon. So I guess I'll take this time to just the weirdest article I read is that the Kansas City Chiefs are making a Hallmark Christmas movie this year. And it just like it's going to be absolutely terrible, but it was just like the weirdest article I had read today. And it just got me thinking, like, what would a USL Hallmark movie look like? And it's just been like rattling around my head and I just can't stop thinking about that. So, just putting that out into the USL universe.
Nicholas, we have an idea. All right. I don't know how to follow that up. I genuinely don't think I can. Let's see. I was fully obsessed with the Rickwood ball game a couple or like last Thursday. I have not been so glued to my TV in a long time as Nicholas Murray gives us our Hallmark movie. For people who are not here, Murray and Morrissey meet in real life and hate each other, only to reconcile and get married in the end. I'm sure this was because, John, as you know, you live in New York. You decide to go down south and leave the big city for once, and you go to Nicholas's pine tree farm, as we all know, and palm tree farm in Tampa Bay. My bad. That's how it goes.
I was thinking like a Sleepless in Seattle kind of situation where we only talk on like a soccer podcast, and then we meet in person and fall in love immediately.
You've got mail.
Yeah.
But no, like I was absolutely glued to the TV for the Rickwood game. I just they did so well with it. The paying homage to the Negro Leagues was fantastic. The pregame stuff was awesome. The going back to the 1950s TV thing was incredible. It was really, really cool. And it also gave me the itch to get rewatch 42. And I forgot just how amazing of a movie 42 is. So if you have not watched 42 or if you haven't seen it in a long time, highly, highly recommend. It is a fantastic movie. So yeah, it's been a long time since I've been glued to my screen like that, but it really got me. It's fantastic production. So
is Corey Herzog the villain in this Hallmark movie? Between
always. Yes. You kind of talked about the Chiefs, and it did briefly remind me of the culture battle we have going on the Twitter sphere and just what everything else of Swiftie versus Dave Grohl. And it's an intriguing moment because I think the Swifties have finally overstepped their reach, and they have gone over the one person who is purely untouchable in the music industry world, and that is Dave Grohl.
Wait, they went after... Oh, I thought they were going to say they went after Dave Matthews Band.
No.
Real fans call him Dave.
Banned in Chicago. Not allowed. So I'm going to be interested. I am following along very closely. The very serious things here. So
Very serious.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for listening. It has been an absolute blast. Check out once again Goals TV Very soon, within the next couple of days, the USL Show scarf is going to be dropping. So that's going to be super exciting. It's going to help us get out to Oakland, all of the things we can do to fundraise. And if you enjoyed the voicemail segment, as I finally figured it out, because I'm so good at this thing, check out the number 205-737-3250. It will be in the description. And yeah. It also, as we said, it's going to be on Twitter and it's in our Discord. Check it all out. Thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate you all. And for the last time tonight, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.